What up, folks? It's your boy Chicago, the handsome liberal, coming to you with another video. It's just once again on a somber note, continuing along that story about Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie. As you can see, the video's titled "What It Teaches Us About Domestic Violence." We're getting to the likes, subscribes, and all of that shit later. I'm assuming that some of you guys may not like at all what I'm about to say, and I've received a lot of negative feedback ever since I suggested that it is very possible that Gabrielle was the one acting violently in this case, and it's possible that Brian may have lunged out and overdid it. And yeah, and what this teaches us, what I'm trying to bring up is that we need to curb the double standard and the sexism in the way we view and treat domestic violence. It's almost to the point where if we show up to the scene and a woman is abused, she is a victim of domestic violence. If we show up to the scene and the guy has the marks on him, well, the woman was defending herself and she still is the victim of domestic violence. And I think it's bullshit. Everything about the situation in Utah, including the police investigating it, says that Gabrielle was the aggressor. That is a direct quote from the police. Yet, all you're hearing in news is, well, Gabrielle was exhibiting signs that she was abused and, she was coming across as if she was emotional. She's admitting she hit the guy. She's on video admitting that she done it. She's admitting that she's bipolar. She's admitting she has mental abuse. She's admitting that she flipped out. And we're skipping over all of that. Well, what about the 911 call? Or maybe the scratches on his face was her acting in self-defense. Maybe she was violent. Is it that hard for us to believe that a woman is capable of being violent towards a guy, that we have to come up with some kind of way to make the guy the bad person? I mean, we're trying, it's like a Rubik's Cube, and we're spinning it every way possible to find some kind of way that makes the man the bad guy. Now, I'm not saying that Brian is some type of angel. I mean, the way he's acting and things like that, I can understand why anybody would be suspect about him. And maybe it is possible that, maybe he was abusing her. I'm not saying that Brian is innocent and Gabby is guilty. I'm saying that is a fucking possibility based on what we have seen that nobody seems to want to entertain. I don't get that. But we don't know what's going to come out yet. The jury's still out on this case. Brian is still missing. There's no autopsy report that has come through from Gabrielle just yet, or a medical examiner's report of how she died. None of that has come through yet. So I'm not saying that it's not possible that Gabrielle was beaten up and treated wrongfully by Brian. I'm just simply saying that the reverse is possible. And it's so hard to get people to understand that men can be victims too. When a woman is beaten up or being abused by a guy, everybody says, listen, she's staying in a relationship, even though he's abusing her, she's emotionally messed up, she's mentally messed up, he has power over her, he has control over her. What do we say when a guy gets hit by a woman? Well, a real man would walk away. Nobody ever thinks twice that maybe he's emotionally abused, or maybe he's being mind. I mean, you don't need to be, 500 pounds full of muscle to have mind control over someone. And we never tend to think that a woman is capable of being abusive. And that's the problem we're having now, is that some kind of way, somehow, Gabby has to be the victim. She's attractive, she's smaller, a little blonde girl. She has all of the accolades that make her look like a victim. He's a man, he has a penis, he has to be the bad guy. And I hate it. And this is something that, regardless of how this case turns out, it needs to teach us in regards to domestic violence. Now, if it turns out that Brian was indeed beating the shit out of Gabrielle, it's just going to set us back even further. If it turns out the other way around, I don't think we're going to accept that. We'll first go from Gabrielle can't be violent to if it turned out she was violent, well, he shouldn't have did that to her. No matter how this comes out, Brian is going to be the bad guy. There's just no way around that. Certainly because of him not telling this side of the story, which I did a video about saying that it's not in his best interest to talk anyway. But that's certainly not going to help him. But Brian is going to be the bad guy in this because he is a man involved in a domestic violence situation with a woman. You got a huge strike against you when you're a man and you get into a fight or some type of domestic violence situation with a woman. If there's, like I said before, if there's not a lot of video footage or something proving that you were the victim, you're asked out. And that's certainly going to appear that way with Brian Laundrie. I just still revert back to the body cam footage coming out of Utah. How people could look at that and come to the conclusion that Gabrielle is the victim makes no sense to me at all. I mean, Brian is the one with the scratches. Yet we look at the video and say, well, maybe she was injuring him in self-defense. Can you imagine the police showing up to a domestic violence call where a woman has marks on her face and someone suggesting, well, maybe the guy was beating her in self-defense and the guy doesn't have any marks on him? That would never happen. Yet, for some reason, we're entertaining that the only person scratched, the woman might have done it in self-defense. I mean, we're trying to give her every defense possible. You know, the same thing with him allowing her the police allowing her to leave in a van. So if she was being abused, they put him in a hotel room out in Utah and they gave her the van. Why not just drive back to Florida and leave his ass in Utah? Well, maybe she called him anyway because she was emotionally abused. Remember the story about a real man walks away? Well, why can't a real woman walk away? Well, because they can be controlled emotionally. Do you want fucking equality or not? Do you want women's equality or not? If you want women's equality, quit the women are weaker bullshit. You can't pick and choose when you want to be the weaker sex. Either you are going to say you have equality and you're capable of handling anything, like Rosie the Riveter. You've seen the Rosie the Riveter posters. Either you can do this shit or you can't. You don't get to pick and choose. Well, now in this case, I'm weaker and I can be controlled and he's abusive and I don't have enough strength in my mind to leave. We would never entertain that shit coming from a guy. You know, he kept going back to an abusive relationship because he was too emotionally abused to leave. Now, I'm not saying it can't happen. If a person can be a victim of a mind game, it has nothing to do with gender. So I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm saying we will not entertain the possibility of it happening. You know, a guy saying, I just couldn't leave, or I was scared to leave. Like women say, look, I was in a bad relationship, but I was scared to leave. We don't entertain that coming from guys, even though if a man is in an abusive marriage, say you got children with a woman, you're in an abusive marriage and you want to leave. Leaving means leaving your children behind. We would totally understand if a woman said, I stayed in a toxic relationship because I didn't want to lose my kids. We don't accept that from a man. We would totally understand if a woman said, I stayed in a toxic relationship because I didn't have no place to go. He was going to put me on the street. We don't accept that from a man. Men get thrown out and locked out of the houses, get their clothes thrown on the front line all the time. A real man would walk away. So we put men in this category where they're like fucking bulletproof, you know, with a Superman suit on, and we put women in this gentle, you know, fragile egg-shaped type status. But then when it comes to something else, we go, well, women are equal to men and women can do anything a man can do. The shit doesn't compute. Like I said, either you are equal or you're not. You're picking and choosing when you want to use the women's equality card, and then the other times, well, I'm weaker and I'm fragile. That's not the case. Now, here's something I was told. Well, we view domestic violence differently because men are stronger than women, and if a woman's beating the man can grab her. Let's take somebody small, Danny DeVito or comedian Kevin Hart. let's say, a little small guy like that got into a fight with Queen Latifah, and he was, he had, let's say, Queen Latifah or Serena Williams or some big girl like that was showing up to the hospital with bruises on her or something like that. We still would hold Kevin Hart or Danny DeVito responsible for beating the hell out of a woman twice his size, and we would still view it the same. But for some reason, when a man is bigger than a woman, we treat it totally different. You're going to tell me that Serena Williams or Queen Latifah could not give Kevin Hart or Danny DeVito a hell of a lot of run for their money? No, we don't. We only look at the difference in size when the man is bigger and the woman is smaller. But when the woman is bigger than the guy, we still treat the dude like he's supposed to be stronger. It's just like for some reason, having a penis makes you more powerful than all women on the planet. It's just an insane double standard. And the reason I'm bringing this video to you is because I believe that double standard, I won't say it got Gabby Petito killed, but it certainly, if it hadn't existed, probably would have prevented her death. And I've said this in other videos, that if the police had not been sexist out in Utah and they had arrested Gabby Petito for what was a clear-cut case of domestic violence, even by their even by the quote that they said, she is the aggressor. If they had arrested her, she would have been charged with domestic violence, and she would have been given a court date in which she would have had to show back up out in Utah and answer a domestic violence charge. And until that court date, she would have been automatically given a order of protection preventing her from coming anywhere near Brian Laundrie. That order of protection would have covered the dates in which she was killed. It would have been involved in that. So they would not have been near each other. In fact, the minute police left them, it would have been illegal for her to even pick up the phone and call the man. That's what they should have done. Especially when you got Gabby sitting there saying, he normally is the one that drives the van, I don't drive the van. You're going to leave them 2,000 miles from home? You're going to leave her with a van that she says, she's admitted to you that she doesn't normally drive, and put him in a hotel, and you don't think she's going to pick up the phone and call the guy that she's been being driven all around the country with? So domestic violence teaches us that it should be viewed from an equal standard, and doing so improperly can cause something like this. Now, who knows why Brian ended up killing her? Who knows? Now, we want to believe, those who want to believe that the woman is the victim. We want to believe that Gabrielle was under control. She was being routinely beaten and all of that. She sure didn't look like that when the police arrived at the scene. So, remember, the 911 call says that he was punching on Gabby. Well, the police came to the scene. They don't say anything about seeing marks from him punching on her. So what was he hitting on a bulletproof woman? I mean, not leaving any marks on her. She doesn't admit or claim any type of violence was being perpetrated on her. Now, I know once again they're going to say, well, when a woman is battered, she'll lie about the violence and all of that. Well, if you believe that a victim of domestic violence will lie about being violated to protect the abuser, then you got a clear-cut case of Brian Laundrie doing exactly that. He lied about the scratches that are on his face and tried to defend Gabby, which the police determined those scratches came from her. So even if you look at the narrative that people who believe that she was a victim of domestic violence, the narrative that they come up with, he fits that narrative. He's lying about being attacked. That's what victims normally do, right? I don't know. Like I said, it's literally like we're going to do whatever we can to paint Brian as a bad guy. Brian might be a bad guy. Who knows? Like I said, the jury's still out. She still needs to be, the medical examination still needs to come out. And we need to find out if Brian is going to ultimately say anything. None of that has happened. For all we know, Brian may not even be fucking alive. I made a video before that I think Brian is hiding out and being aided and abetted potentially by his family, who is beginning to look more shady and shady as the days go on. But if that was your child, you'd probably do the same thing. So I personally believe, and I'm going to say it again until I see otherwise, I believe Gabby Petito was a violent woman. She put her hands on this guy. As they say, as women often say, if a man will put his hands on you once, he'll do it again. That also applies to a woman. My guess is she was somewhat violent. She admits she was bipolar. She admits she could be mean sometimes. She admits she was hitting a guy. Are we going to believe that this is the only time she's done that? No. We just don't want to believe that. We want to believe that something he was doing as a man was making her beat the fuck out of him, which is something we would never accept from a man. I wouldn't be violent if she wasn't playing on my emotions and making me hit her. We throw his ass in jail talking like that. But for some reason, when a woman says it, it's acceptable. So my guess is, like I said, she was violent. They ended up getting back together after the police fucked up and dropped the ball. And the argument picked up where it left off at, and I believe that Gabrielle hitting him once, he hit him again, and this time Brian snapped. He snapped. He did the same thing Farrah Fawcett in The Burning Bed did, or Lorena Bobbitt did, chopping off the man's dick. He snapped. The only difference is he snapped as a man, and as a man, it is not acceptable. As a man, no matter what's happening to you, you should take that ass whooping, block, dodge, or run away. You never have the right to stand your ground. Brian didn't follow those rules, and Brian's probably going to end up spending most of his adult life in prison. That's my take until I see otherwise. It's your boy Chicago, the handsome liberal. I'm going to end it here. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. You think I'm just out in space on this one, or you think I might be tweaking the needle towards the right direction? What do you think? You think Gabby's an innocent little flower, or you think she's, violence in a cute package? Let me know what you think, and I will talk to you in the comments about it. As you know, I respond to all comments. And I'm going to ask what I always ask you to do towards the end of the video. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I've been seeing the numbers going up. I appreciate that. Some of you guys don't like what I got to say, and when you hit the dislike button, if you drop a comment in there and explain why. I've been talking to some of you back and forth. I'm not expecting everybody to come around. Certainly when I'm talking about a woman beating on a man and a woman being held accountable. There's a whole lot of women that don't like this shit. So if you're one of those, drop it in the comments. We can talk. We can talk respectfully. I take all the abuse you can give me. I'm a man. Feel free to hit me. This is what happens for being a man, unfortunately. So I can take that. But we can talk about it. So I'm going to go ahead and end it. If I see you in the comments, I will holler at you. Boy, Chicago, the handsome liberal, out.